Guys, this is Joe just popping in to ask if you've signed up for your free marketing consultation with MDT Marketing yet. If you haven't, head to mdtmarketing.com/edup, submit your information, get your free consultation today. Don't do it alone. Find the right partner. Welcome back, everybody. This is the EdUp Experience podcast where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio here with you again. I'm really excited about today's episode. I got to tell you, this is a really interesting time as we're recording this episode. Students are returning to campus at traditional universities. We have the Delta variant surging across the United States. There's so much going on and so much to talk about. And I'm lucky I have a very talkative gentleman here with me today. His name is Dr. Thomas Bailey, and he is president of Teachers College at Columbia University. Tom, how you doing?
Very well. Glad to be here.
Am I right in saying that you're ready to talk it out with me, that you're coming with the microphone in hand and you're ready to chat?
Absolutely.
Well,
let's get going.
Okay. You don't have to tell me twice. Let me tell you. I only have one speed and it's fast. So, Tom, I don't think a lot of people know that Teachers College at Columbia University is the country's first and largest graduate school of education. So there's a lot more to Teachers College than the name. Can you tell me and our listeners a little more about Teachers College to give them an idea of the breadth and depth and impact?
So I'm certainly happy to do that. So we did start in 1887. We started out as teaching practical skills to immigrants, and that theme of international presence has continued to this day. But in about 1887, we really became a college focused primarily on preparing teachers. But by the turn of the century, that is the last century, we really moved to a broader approach to human development that included education, psychology, and health. So really recognizes that these issues, really need a broad approach, an interdisciplinary approach. So to some extent, it's been over 100 years, and the title Teachers College is a little bit much narrower than what we're actually doing. Given our history with immigration in general, and we've always had a big emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. During the Jim Crow era, we trained many teachers who taught in the South. We're highly international. We actually have work going on in about 80 countries with our faculty. Very diverse student body. About 20 to 25% of our students are international. Another 35% are either African American, Hispanic American, or Asian American. And of course, it's very important that we're located in New York, which is such a diverse city, both in terms of its domestic population as well as the international population. So I think those are themes, and we'll get a chance to talk more about those. But yes, we are very broad. We approach problems from many different directions, and we think that's an important strength.
That is definitely an important strength. And, operating a university in any context right now has its challenges, does it not? You're in one of the most diverse cities in the world, more populous cities in the world. And so then we have all of these health concerns for students. And, Tom, your guess is as good as anybody else, how the Delta variant and how COVID is affecting people's decision-making and so on. How is your on-campus returning going for students? What's the vibe? I mean, are people excited to be there? Are there nerves from the students? Talk to me about how that process is going.
Well, we are just started. We don't actually start classes until next week. This evening is our new student orientation, which actually will be virtual.
Okay.
We are going to be on campus. For the most part, there are some students, for instance, international students who've not been able to get visas, and so we are accommodating them. So we'll have some classes that are both in person as well as some participants will be virtual. Right now, this week, we are beginning to have our residence students arrive. About maybe a fifth of our students or fewer actually live on campus. And so they're arriving. We were remote working until 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we're gradually coming back. And we are certainly seeing students on the street and students coming to orientation. So I think there's a great amount of enthusiasm. People are very pleased to get back in person. I've been coming to my office for about since July, and I'm really pleased to be here. So I think that yes, we are we're watching the variant. We've developed our protocols so that we think that we can keep safe. We do have a vaccine mandate. We've prepared ourselves so that we can manage this, and I think people are really excited and pleased to be able to get back together.
How much, Tom? True question here for you. How much dust was on those sport jackets when you came back into the office in July? Because I see my suits sitting in a closet, and I'm just wondering if I can get in them anymore, or if there's just going to be like a cloud of dust come off when I take it off the hanger.
Yes, well, I mean, we were all closed up, so certainly it was eerie to come back into an office where the it was interesting. I'm in our president's office. We have board meetings 4 times a year, and there's the pile of the board books from March 2020.
That's crazy.
So that was an indication of the dust.
Oh my gosh! And you just like, who was in here last? And the board books had just been sitting there, not moving. That's interesting. I'm gonna to kind of shift the conversation just a little bit, and I want to ask you, because Teachers College implies the name teachers. That you're educating people in different careers, healthcare, education, but the name Teachers College, of course, when you think about it, you're going, okay, these people are coming here, they're learning to be teachers, they're going out into the world, and they're in our K through 12 classrooms, and they're becoming educational administrators. And there's a big question. I mean, being a teacher is hard. First of all, it's hard work. And there's a shortage across the U.S. of teachers and qualified teachers, and it seems that nobody wants to be a teacher anymore, or that it's been a confusing career given the impact on teachers. But then you go, boy, we cannot operate without them. I as a father of 2 young kids, had them go online, and wow, let me bow to the teacher that took my kids to class every day. What's the sense for now and interest in Teachers College and, supporting classrooms and administration? Is there as much of an interest as there was before, more of an interest? Talk to me about that trend.
No, I think there's still many people who are interested in going to education and being teachers. I mean, we just had a meeting with about 15 of our new students, and several of them are headed to be teachers. They've wanted to do that. It is of course a very wonderful career. So I think we're certainly working to make sure that our students are prepared for the jobs that they're going to get. It's a broader societal question. I mean, we're also, one of the reasons why we have our interdisciplinary approach is because, we also need to be looking at the policy levers. We would like to see teachers paid more. That will make it a more attractive profession for those for people who want to go into that. So we're also working to try to make it to provide more financial aid for students who want to go into teaching. So of course we know that at least initially that teaching salaries aren't that high. So we want to try to relieve the burden on our students who are going to go into teaching. Society is such that teaching and education are just that much more important. So we're trying to strengthen that and make sure that those people who do come out of here come out with the skills that they need.
Just to pull that out, if there's, I have still yet to meet a person that doesn't want to pay teachers more, and you just wonder how we go about that, especially especially given the COVID situation. If you had kids that were home and they were going to school online, especially young kids, and I've got a 6-year-old sitting at my kitchen table taking classes online, and you go, man, if this teacher is not making enough money, the amount of effort that they have to put in, it's so much more effort than they're being compensated for. So I agree with you 100%, Tom. And it's like the perspective that you never had until you were trying to school kids at home, and you realize, okay, wow, these are some of the most important people in the world to take our kids every single day. If we didn't already know it, it certainly is. It was in our face more than it ever was before. So I just want to pull that out. But I do want to transition and have you tell me a little bit more about your background and work at the Community College Research Center, which is based at Teachers College, and how that informs your leadership as president of Teachers College.
So okay, well, I've been president for 3 years, and before that, I led the Community College Research Center for 15. And yes, I started out. I'm an economist. I was a labor economist, and I was interested in how technology changed work and how that influences the skills that were required. And so that led me to education. So if we need new skills, then what does that imply for education? And I started to visit community colleges, because community colleges were, institutions that were actually preparing people for work. So actually, I have to pause here and give EdUp a shout out for your coverage of community colleges, because.
Well, thank you, Tom. That's very nice of you.
So I've got to say that, often, higher education, people think, the Ivy League or the elite colleges. And I haven't gone through all of your podcasts, but I'm not sure. You certainly haven't had a lot of Ivy League, maybe the first, but you've had many community college presidents. So that is great. And I just, so in 1996, we started the Community College Research Center. Interestingly enough, we realized, and our funders realized, that if we talk about first generation students of color, immigrants, low-income students, they're all concentrated in community colleges. And so we have a situation where you have institutions that are dealing with the students that often have the greatest barriers to their future education, and nevertheless, they're getting the least money. So that's we wanted to try to do what we could to improve the effectiveness of community colleges. And so really, it was really an effort to say, how is it that we can improve the lives and opportunities of community college students and their communities by working with the institutions to strengthen those institutions so that they can be more effective. So I think that was that was what we were trying to do. We did a lot of work, partnerships with practitioners. So I think all of those principles and ideas that we work with at the Community College Research Center really can translate into my leadership of Teachers College, because really it's the same job in a sense. Here we have an institution. The goal of that institution is to work with colleges, with schools, with other organizations to try to make them better able to serve the goals that they have. We say that our goal is to make a smarter, healthier, and more equitable world. And we try to do that through both the education that we give to our students, through the research that we do that can try to show people what they can do, and then through the work that we do directly with practitioners. So I would say that, yes, when I started out thinking community colleges to a graduate school of education, what was the connection? I find that in fact, it's very similar to the types of goals, values, and objectives that I had when I was working at the community college center.
That's amazing, right? It's so much about partnership and collaboration and trying to solve some of the problems that we face today, which in higher ed, Tom, is we are not, despite the COVID stuff aside, because that really was, let's just say it's unanticipated, to say the least. But there's been a lot of conjecture around educational value, a degree having value, ROI, return on investment. In fact, as we're recording this right now, LinkedIn is running a LinkedIn Live on the value of a college degree, and they grab somebody from some institute somewhere to talk about it. So it's a widely discussed topic, right? Is college worth it? Is it going to pay you back? Is it all these kind of things? Being that you're at an Ivy at Teachers College, talk to me about the sense of that conversation amongst your stakeholders and students, and where do you guys stand? Because, well, let me just say this, that's kind of a dumb question. I'm known for asking those dumb questions sometimes, Tom. We work in higher ed, so of course we stand by the idea of a degree because we know it helps with life expectancy and happiness and all of these other things besides earnings and stuff. But the conversation around it is just growing, and there's more question. And where do you go? What do you think about that whole issue?
Well, I think we have a broad set of objectives to try to strengthen higher education. I mean, of course, one of the issues is the inequities that we have. And that's certainly a challenge and part of the overall discussion.
Yeah, it's a societal issue, not just a higher education issue.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't solve that alone, but we need to devote ourselves to doing that. So certainly, as I said, we have emphasized our diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've known that low-income students of color have been hurt most by the pandemic. And we've tried to work to do that. We have worked hard to try to diversify both our student body, which already is diverse, as well as our faculty. Our research has looked at the effects particularly on minoritized populations. And so we've focused a lot on that. Now, the cost, that's certainly an issue. And one of the things that we did at the Community College Center was to try to make sure that students got what they wanted and did it in the most efficient way. And so I think that's the same kinds of questions that we have here. Do we have the best programs? Are they organized in a way? Are students able to move through their programs effectively and meet the goals that they have in the end? So I think there's that discussion, but our focus is trying to make the institution as effective as possible to address the equity issues and to make sure that students are getting a return on the investment. It is a big investment that they're making, and we're very concerned that they're able to achieve the goals that they have in the most effective way. So I think that's the approach that we want to take to that discussion. As you say, it's clear in general, research shows that higher education pays off. So I think that's a general thing that we certainly believe in and support.
If you're experiencing any level of marketing challenge right now, you've got to ask the hard questions and you need answers. Are you using the right mix of channels to get in front of your future students? Is your messaging personalized and delivered in a medium your audience and future students will respond to? And are you spending more time building reporting than listening in on what your students really want? All of these questions will get answered when you sign up for your free consultation with MDT Marketing. Head to mdtmarketing.com/edup, submit your information, and talk to MDT. Don't go it alone. Find the right partner. The guys at MDT, the team at MDT is absolutely amazing. Whether your challenge is the cost of inquiries, your branding, the bad and incomplete information that come with your inquiries, Whatever it is, an audit of your challenges will help your institution, and it's free. mdtmarketing.com/edup. It's interesting because there's so much, there a lot of times when you have folks question the value of a college degree and ROI comes up, there's almost this inference that higher education leaders in general don't understand the concept of an ROI. And I always go, but wait a minute, you have economists like Tom, like you, and you have others. Literally, we're working in the finances of operations of a college every single day. Of course, we understand ROI. We just, there's a lot of expectations. Each person's expectation is so different. And for an institution to any institution across the country to be able to solve that expectation with a reality is impossible because there's just so many variables for each person, right? So all you can do is try to align, like you're saying, Tom, align your programs, align your education with the best possible return for the most amount of students. And then, so much of that is up to the student, to go out there and to take the education that they have and leverage that for opportunity. Nobody hands you opportunity in life. You got to do something about it. I don't know about you, Tom, but when I came out of college, nobody was discussing ROI. I went to college and then it was up to me to go get a job.
Well, so I one of the first things I really looked at when I got here was looked at our career office. And this, by the way, was something that we emphasized a lot in community colleges. Often the career office is something that somebody goes to as they get to the end. I mean, we emphasize that may be one of the first things that a student does when they arrive. When they're at their initial orientation, they have contact with our career office. So that's a question. We want to make sure that they have good goals, that they understand those goals, and that they're able to be on a path which takes them to those goals. So that's one thing. And then the other is the cost. So I said, we're working to try to make sure that that they're going through as efficiently as possible. And I think, like many institutions, we're working hard to raise money for financial aid, especially for students who are going into teaching, who are going into other professions that are not highly paid. So we can address the cost on one side, which is part of the investment. And at the same time, we make sure that when they get to the end, that they will be able to achieve the goals that they have.
Talk to me a little bit about certificates, academic certificates, non-credit certificate. There's a growing audience and a growing appetite out there for an unbundled educational journey, or at least, skill on demand, or, maybe I'm going to try to take this academic certificate and come back later to get the degree, or while I'm getting a degree, I'm going to get this academic certificate on the side because it's stacking. You guys into that at all? And is there a renewed interest or increased interest in the certificate pathways?
Interesting. Well, that's very interesting because actually I did research on that when I was at Community College Center. I think that the value of certificates is, varied. Many of them aren't worth that much. I know there's a big push to that, and so some of them can be valuable. I think that and then of course, for many, I think I wrote a paper in 1993 about stackable certificates or stackable credentials. And so the idea is that you get a credential now, then you can, you can go out and work, and then you come back and you add to that. And actually we did research that that's not a very common process to actually happen. I think it's important and I've emphasized that we need to have a strong path for students, that they're helped to understand the skills that they get, and they can accumulate those skills in a coherent manner. I think it's difficult for students to do that on their own. And then if you really want to put certificates together, then I think that has to be organized in a way that helps students do that. So I think this is certainly one thing we found in community colleges, that students often got lost, even when they were in a regular institution. So I think it's a lot to ask them to put together a series of certificates that will eventually lead them to a kind of a coherent outcome. I think also there's an important thing about education, which is not just the specific skills that people are getting, but also the broader skills that they need to be able to be flexible, to be able to respond to changes, to be able to deal with the fact that the skills that they're taught in this will become obsolete quickly. So I think that's really gets back to our emphasis on the design of educational systems, on the ability of teachers to, to teach, broader sets of skills. So I don't, I know there's been a lot of discussion about certificates. I mean, we do have some certificates here. Some of them have been successful, some of them haven't. So I think that's certainly to continue, but I think it needs to be integrated into a broader system and pathway that will actually help students get to the goals that they have.
I'm glad you said that, because I feel the same way you do. And it's very easy right now because there's pressure on higher education from various angles for someone to go, oh yeah, we're all about certificates. We're offering certificates here. We got lots of interest in certificates, but in what? And I always go, there's all these people are interested in certificates. Now I get the technology certificates. You want to go take a grow with Google and get a certificate in cloud computing? Yeah, you're probably going to go get a great job as a coder somewhere. But there's more than 2 million types of certificates. And you just wonder, how does anybody understand the value and what's valuable and what isn't, to your point? How do you expect a traditional, and I know your graduate student may be a little different, but if you're talking a traditional college age student, 18 to 22, to understand how to stack certificates, they could barely pick a degree, right? How do you even imagine that to happen? And then if you go to the graduate level, there has to be some, you'd think, employer input, right? Where the employer says, hey, look, we've got a collaboration with Teachers College. If you go take 1, 2, and 3 certificates, you're going to get a salary boost. And there's some level of partnership that would have to exist. Otherwise, you just have offerings, and it's kind of like having a really big menu to choose from, and nobody knows what to pick. And I always thought there's this lack of direction. Yeah, there's lots of people interested in certificates as an alternative to a degree, but to do what is always been a big question for me. And I'm glad you brought that up.
So just that, I mean, I think certificates, if you're employed in a job and something comes up and you need to learn a skill to do something, I think going and get a certificate or a non-credit instruction is useful. But if you're talking about certificates as a basic educational strategy, I think that's a different question for the very reasons that you just brought up.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a complicated conversation, one that we will not solve today, Tom. Definitely not. Talk a little bit, just a little bit more about Teachers College. How are you talked about diversity, you talked about accessibility. What other challenges have you, let me ask it to you this way, Tom. What keeps you up at night? What's the one thing right now during COVID that you just, when you lay your head down, you just go, oh, this is the thing that's keeping me up? And what keeps you coming back the next day?
Can I only get one? So no.
How much time do we have?
Listen, obviously this has been an exceptional, really unusual time, a huge challenge. I think that, and so, I think we did a good job of going online. It turns out that, we kind of had a technology and an infrastructure that could help our faculty to go online and help our students. I mean, it wasn't easy, but I think we did a good job with that. I think our students have been relatively satisfied with what we're doing. I think we get pretty good comments on that. Our enrollments have stayed up. So I think that's all good. It's been and it turns out that it was much more difficult to actually figure out how to get back to campus. I mean, one of the things I do want to emphasize is that while we have been challenged by COVID, we have been very concerned about, students' mental health, the stresses that they're under, as well as our faculty and staff too. The challenges that parents had to try to manage. I mean, you probably experienced this, to try to manage your kids who are, Zooming, who are in virtual, instruction while you're also trying to work. So I think those were really important challenges that we had. But right now, of course, I mean, what can I say? We're coming back. We have a vaccine mandate. Will we have cases? What do we do when we have those cases? Those are certainly challenges that, that we're all facing. We have, I think we're prepared, but I think that's a challenge and a concern that we have. But I do want to say something, which is that I think this is also a tremendous opportunity that we have. We went through this, and it's kind of a sense that I think you're reading. I'm sure if you're reading the press, you're seeing that many people are deciding, do I go back to work? Is that the really thing? So
every single day,
people are trying to decide what is really important to them. What are they getting meaning out of? And I think we as an institution are asking that same question. What is it that this has been difficult. How is it that we can, what are we doing? What are our values? What is it that we want to do with this? And, in fact, we have all sorts of new experiences. Everybody now has taught online. This semester, most of our faculty will be teaching, or many of them will be teaching a sort of a hybrid situation where they're online and in the classroom. We've had all our staff worked virtually for the whole year, and now we're coming back. So we're not going to look like we did in the summer of 2019, but it's what is it? So we're having a discussion in the college about what we're going to look like. What is it that we're going to learn from this very difficult experience? And so I think that's while I can stay awake at night worrying about some issues, I can also stay awake at night thinking about the opportunities that we have from this.
And it's great to see people innovate through their work. And, given this, I think on the public, and I know there's people that disagree with me here, but the public did a really poor job and the higher ed thought leaders that are kind of outside the work within higher education did a poor job of giving higher ed enough credit that they could move quickly enough to change. We all know higher ed is tough to change, and we all know it can be slow sometimes, but faced with the adversity of COVID, we've seen mountains moved and innovation move years and years in advance and catalyze that innovation into the future, which I think is exciting, right? So all of this hard stuff has opened up the doors for innovative work that I think is going to continue to happen as people look for, what the future is. And I'm going to ask you about that in a second. But, we ask the same two questions to everybody when we close out these episodes, Tom. The first is there anything we have not covered about Teachers College that you would like to talk about or say, any initiatives you have going on, basically your opportunity to plug Teachers College? And then after you get to that one, what do you see as the future of higher education?
So, all right. So just sort of to follow up on the discussion we had before, as far as, we are definitely focusing on, the development of technology, and not just in online education. So, we have, the future of teaching is going to be deeply embedded in all sorts of new technologies and multimodal types of approaches. So I think that's something that we are developing. We have something called the Digital Futures Institute here, which is one of our priorities. So that I think that's important. Now, as far as the future is concerned, and as far as like what is it that we haven't talked about? I think there's no question that higher education faces really difficult challenges. So we've talked about cost. That's a huge issue. We've talked about the equity question. And, I think we have to ask, does higher education actually address equity and make the society more equal, or does it actually exacerbate it? One could argue that the students who have the most means often go to the institutions where, that have the most to spend on them. So I think that's an issue. I think there's you raised the question of the value of higher education. What is the return on investment? And of course, there's the political issues. We don't face them so much in New York City, but other parts of the country, if you read the industry press, There's controversies about what gets taught and how it gets taught, and how do we teach the history of race in this country. So those are huge challenges that we as institutions are facing. Now, we can't solve those alone. We need to, these are societal questions, but we need to do the best we can as institutions, working together, working with policymakers to try to address those. Now, while we're facing these problems as institutions, the need for higher education is that much greater. The skills that are required, I mentioned before, the sort of broad skills that we need to try to change, to try to be able to adapt as things will change. We're facing huge problems, climate change, the whole question about equity. Just look at the medical. I mean, we've got vaccines because of our medical industry and the research that we're doing. So both from an individual perspective, that is, it's very important for individuals to be able to get additional education because that gives them more opportunities. And from society's perspective, which is to say, as a society, we need a strong, effective system of higher education. So what do we have? We have an institution that faces huge problems, but it's that much more important. So what more could you want, really? You've got problems, but you have a very important job to do. And as I emphasized before, we also have this opportunity because we've had this kind of this sort of discontinuity, this change. So we have problems, our role is important, but also we have a chance now to really rethink what we're doing, to think in new ways. And so I think there are some things that keep me awake at night, at the same time, I think this is a really exciting time for higher education. It's a challenge, but I think we have great opportunities. And, I'm very pleased to be able to, lead this institution to really engage in that mix of things and to work towards, as I said before, making a smarter, healthier, and more equitable world.
Wow, that's what we call a mic drop moment here at the EdUp Experience, Tom. Well said. That's incredible. I love the message. It's uplifting. I feel excited after listening to you speak, my friend. That was well done, to say the least. I really appreciate you coming on today. It's been a real honor to host you. I am. You know what? I'm humbled, my friend. You do great work, and very, very excited to see what Teachers College has in store for the future.
Well, Joe, I was really pleased to be on. I enjoyed it, I've listened to many of your podcasts, and I said I find them all really interesting. I think you're doing a great job with that. And as I said, you're paying attention to sectors of higher education that often get neglected. So anyway. Thank you so much for having me on. And, I will continue to listen to your podcasts.
You are too kind, my friend. I appreciate it. This has been another episode of the EdUp Experience with Dr. Thomas Bailey, president of Teachers College at Columbia University. Until next time, everyone. Are you using the right mix of channels to get in front of your audience? Is your messaging personalized and delivered in a medium your audience responds to? Are you spending more time building reports than listening in on what your audience wants? These are not easy questions to answer. That's why our great friends at MDT Marketing are offering a free audit of your marketing efforts. Head to www.mdtmarketing.com/edup and submit your information for your free consultation today. Look, guys, you got nothing to lose. It's free. I don't know why you wouldn't want a free audit to tell you what you're doing, whether it's effective, and how you can make some incremental changes that can make a big difference moving forward. That's www.mdtmarketing.com/edup.